Strike is expanding its Lightning Network-based cross-border payment service in Mexico. This is the largest market for remittances from the U.S. The service is called Send Globally. I believe we've spoken about it on the show before. It's going to be available starting today and will provide a faster, cheaper option for people who are sending remittances. So how this works for our audience is you can send US dollars using this application. It gets converted to Bitcoin and sent via the Lightning Network. And then when it reaches the recipient, it's converted into the local fiat currency and deposited into your bank account. Will, what do you make of this story?
I'm not sure what I make of the story. I am positive and bullish on growth of like these Lightning applications and any sort of like Web3 Bitcoin, Ethereum product that brings dollars and other like crypto dollars into people's hands. Like I like that. That's a good thing. I don't know about all these applications moving into different countries. I don't really understand the licensing regimes behind these things. I often see headlines that this application has now been able to operate in this jurisdiction. But I'm always confused why I wasn't able to do that in the first place if it truly is like a Web3, DeFi, or Lightning application in the first place, right? Like, why do they need the licensing? I think it does come down to like a lot of these things are actually more tied into traditional financial system that we're willing to say. And that's why they always have to roll out these headlines, right? Saying that like, hey, we're now in Mexico, or now we're in El Salvador, or now we're in Peru, or wherever it may be. I think it's because like a lot of these things are still basically TradFi applications. They're not really Bitcoin applications first. To be fair, that's just probably the state of the world, right? Like if you want to go from crypto to cash, it's a lot harder than people think about, and you need a lot of these licenses. At the same time, I would like to see a place where like maybe we don't have to make announcements that we've just crossed borders for the first time. Zach?
Yeah, that's the thing. When you interact with these money transmitter licensing regimes, you got to play ball or else you risk getting hit by the regulators. Jen, I'll toss it to you before I come back to that thought.
Okay. So I think that this is big news. So if we look at some of the numbers, the remittances from the US to Mexico, I think make up 95% of remittances worldwide. I stand to be fact checked, but I believe I read that from World Bank data. And so when we think about remittances right now, there are really heavy fees that are associated with them. It takes kind of a long time for people to get the money from the US to Mexico. And speaking from my own experience living overseas, I wasn't sending remittances, but just sending money to a Canadian bank account from wherever in the world I was. It takes a long time and there are a lot of fees associated with it. And so if this technology can make that easier and not have anyone actually have to interact with crypto because of this like regulatory uncertainty or these like really negative headlines or the fact that like crypto feels scary to people, I think is a really good stepping stone in the right direction to this mainstream adoption that we talk about all the time. Zach?
Yeah, for me, stepping back, I think this is interesting as a trend, right? This is people using the Bitcoin network to send value. And I think, let's put the money transmitting licensing stuff aside and let's look at sort of real world utility of these blockchain networks. And this is a great example of it, right? These are lightning fast rails that get money to different parts of the world without all the headaches and middlemen that have made the remittance process painful and expensive for many, many people who really should have better options out there. So to see this, I think, is really important. You're seeing some experimentation around this with Lightspark, which is David Marcus's new thing, obviously more business focused, as opposed to the more retail focused Strike in this instance. So I think like it's really cool to see Bitcoin being used for its rails rather than just for the asset that sits on top of it. And I think the fact that people are building these applications on Bitcoin, which is the oldest and arguably the most secure network in the crypto world, is fantastic. So bringing these sort of real world actual applications to people in a way that can meaningfully improve their financial lives, I think is a great story. And if it requires a licensing because you got to cash out to cash, so be it. But it is interesting to see these tools being deployed for what they are, rails for transmitting value across the world, hopefully in some ideal state without a bunch of onerous governmental restrictions. But we're not there just yet. Will, what do you think?
Two quick thoughts before we close out. One, underlying subtext of this whole conversation is about Prime Trust, which Strike was using Prime Trust, a custodian and a banking partner in the US. Prime Trust was just purchased by BitGo last week, according to CoinDesk Scoop, or at least an LOI was sent out for that purchase. Look forward to seeing how that changes. Second, with Strike, again, the opportunity to onboard anyone is a huge win for Bitcoin. I'm looking forward to see how they're able to do it more so using Bitcoin means and less so TradFi means. And I think leaving Prime Trust and be able to do everything in-house only helps that out.